Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere warm, ancient, and scented like a smoky dream, deep into the highlands of ancient Ethiopia, under a velvet night sky sprinkled with stars. You're barefoot, walking slowly across compacted red earth, the kind that clings slightly to your soles with every step. There's the rustle of acacia trees, a soft bleating of goats somewhere behind a wall, and just ahead, the soft glow of oil lamps flickering behind linen-draped windows. You're in the Aksumite kingdom, around 200 AD. Give or take a decade or three, depending on how dusty the historian scrolls are. This is a land of kings and queens, traders and mystics, farmers and perfumers. And tonight, you're not a visiting scholar or a time traveler with gadgets. You're someone quiet, curious, and maybe a bit tired from walking uphill all day. Good news, your destination is close, and it smells incredible. There's something on the breeze. It's sharp and sweet at the same time, like citrus that's been roasted in the sun and then smothered in honey. That, my friend, is frankincense smoke, ancient Ethiopia's liquid gold. Except not liquid, not gold, and technically a tree's hardened sap. But you get the idea. You step into a wide compound surrounded by low walls, where the night has properly fallen now. A family is gathered around a fire. You're offered a seat on a woven mat. Don't worry, you're expected. Someone hands you a warm drink made from fermented honey, and another adjusts the coals in a small incense burner. Thin trails of white smoke rise into the night air, curling like sleepy ghosts around your ankles. The stars above seem closer than usual. You tilt your head back and see constellations that don't look quite like what you know. These stars have different names here. They tell different stories. A young girl begins telling you one of those stories, a soft one about the Queen of Sheba traveling to visit Solomon, with baskets of frankincense packed by her servants, each nugget kissed with sacred oil. You nod slowly, even if the details are fuzzy. Some say she came from here. Others argue she was Yemeni. Historians still bicker about it in conferences with bad coffee. But here, the story floats gently on the smoke, and that's enough. Your eyelids droop. But don't fall asleep just yet. We've only just arrived. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The compound smells of herbs, ash, and sun-baked pottery. Someone has just finished preparing dinner. Roasted lentils with cumin, if your nose has its guesses right. And now, the family's attention turns to relaxation, storytelling, and scent. You hear a scraping sound from the back, a servant pulling dried branches into the perfuming tent. It's a low structure, made from rough woven cloth, stretched over a frame of crooked sticks. It looks humble, but what happens inside is both practical and deeply ritualistic. A noblewoman steps out of the main house. She's wrapped in a soft cotton shawl, her hair glinting with some kind of oil. She says nothing. She doesn't have to. Everyone knows what time it is. Sitting hour. As she steps into the tent, you get a glimpse. Bowls of powdered bark, small leather pouches of crushed resin, a jar of goat butter that looks, well, you wouldn't eat it. A clay censer in the middle puffs out sweet clouds. She lowers herself over the smoke, draping the shawl around her like a mini canopy, trapping the rising scent. It's not just perfume. It's skincare, deodorant, bug repellent, and spiritual shield, all rolled into one hypnotic puff of frankincense. Outside, no one interrupts. You sit quietly, blinking into the firelight. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks and a camel groans. Aksum never truly sleeps. You hear a joke from one of the older women. Something about a neighbor who tried to make his own perfume and ended up smelling like burnt onion stew for 3 days. Everyone laughs gently. You do too. That's the thing. Ancient Ethiopia is full of small, careful rituals like this. Things passed down through hands, not books. When outsiders wrote about Aksum, they mentioned its gold, its ports, its kings who carved inscriptions in stone. But they rarely wrote about the quiet smoke that drifted through homes each night. The rituals of scent that were just as valuable as silk or ivory. As you lean back on the mat, the scent begins to lull you. There's a sharp sweetness to it, but also something grounding. Earthy, almost peppery. It sticks in your nose in a way that's comforting, like when you catch a whiff of your favorite blanket. A man nearby notices your relaxed face and smiles. "It's good, isn't it?" he says, nodding at the smoke. It reminds the body to rest. And honestly, he's not wrong. Your journey's only begun, and there's so much more to smell, taste, and wander through. But for now, your bones are warm, your mind is slow, and the night stretches out in front of you like a winding trail. You wake up to the smell of spice and charcoal. No, not the greasy breakfast kind. This is ancient Ethiopia, remember? Here, morning doesn't begin with bacon and eggs. It starts with smoke. Frankincense smoke, to be precise, curling up from the same clay burner you saw last night. Only now, it's got competition. Something slightly more bitter, with a citrusy snap. Myrrh. Someone's mixing things up today. You sit up slowly. The woven mat beneath you is warm from the early sun, and the air is already pulsing with life. Chickens peck the dirt outside. A donkey brays somewhere in the alley, sounding a bit too enthusiastic for this hour. Inside the perfuming tent, the noblewoman from last night is gone, but the scent she left behind still clings to the fabric like a memory. Your guide, an older man with sun-cracked skin and gentle hands, appears at your side with a knowing smile. "You ready to see where that smell comes from?" he asks. You nod, wiping sleep from your eyes. Time to get moving. Your first stop? The market. Not the flashy kind with silk banners and silver coins clinking. This one is earthy, chaotic, full of barefoot traders who haul sacks, shout greetings, and barter with hand gestures so elaborate they could be dance moves. You pass stalls of dried dates, clay pots, and there it is, a pile of frankincense nuggets shimmering like golden pebbles. You lean in close. One breath, and your nose does a backflip. It smells like lemon, pine, and something almost churchy. It's clean and sharp and kind of bossy, like the scent wants to slap your face awake and then hug you. A vendor eyes you. He picks up a piece and snaps it between his fingers. Clean break, no crumble. "Good one," he grins. "Straight from Boswellia trees in the lowlands." That's your cue. You're about to head downhill, literally. The Boswellia trees don't grow in these misty highlands. They cling to rocky, dry slopes in the arid lowlands, where life is harder, but the sap is richer. Your guide hands you a walking stick. "It's a bit of a hike," he says, "and the goats are kind of jerks." You set off. The journey takes you past terraced farms, steep cliffs, and families who wave politely as you pass. At one point, a boy runs by with a basket of figs on his head, yelling something about missing goats. His little sister follows with a stick twice her size. Classic. Eventually, the greenery fades, and the landscape opens into a dusty, sun-blasted plain. This is Boswellia country. You see the trees before you smell them, twisted and knobby, with bark like peeling paper and branches that look like someone tried to fold a tree in origami and gave up halfway. They're not pretty. They're survivors. A man greets you. He's part of a harvesting clan, one of many families who've been tending these trees for generations. "We don't plant them," he tells you. "They choose where to grow." You nod, pretending that makes sense. Honestly, it kind of does. The harvesting process is weirdly delicate. First, they make a small cut in the bark. Not too deep. A few days later, the tree bleeds. White resin oozes out like a slow tear. They let it harden, then cut again. Each round of cuts produces cleaner, more fragrant resin. The best stuff? It's like amber, only lighter and more glassy. You're handed a small tool, the kind used to make the incisions. You hesitate. "Don't worry." The man chuckles. "The tree won't scream." Still, you make the cut gently. Sap appears, slow and reluctant. It's oddly intimate, like you're waking the tree from a nap it didn't ask for. The smell? Even raw, it hits your nostrils hard. Tangy, slightly minty, with that deep earth undertone that smells a bit like old churches and rich soil. You wonder for a second how anyone thought to burn this stuff in the first place. Did someone trip into a fire carrying a lump and go, "Wait, what's that smell?" Or was it always sacred, always purposeful? Historians still argue whether frankincense was discovered accidentally or revered from the very beginning. The truth is probably somewhere in the smoky middle. You spend the rest of the day watching the harvest. Women sort the resin by size and color, chatting softly while toddlers nap in baskets nearby. There's laughter a few arguments, and a lot of sun. You drink something sour and fermented, and try not to look alarmed when someone eats roasted locusts like they're popcorn. Before you leave, the harvester wraps a handful of hardened resin in cloth and presses it into your palm. For the road, he says, and you nod, even though the road back is uphill and your legs already hate you. The sun starts to drop, turning the sky into a watercolor of red and orange. You climb slowly, the wind at your back, the smell of frankincense lingering in your hands. You can still hear the low whistle of the harvester, fading into the trees. By the time you reach the highlands again, the stars are back out. Same sky, same constellations, but now you know what's behind that magical smoke drifting through the perfuming tent. You know it comes from the bark of sun-scorched trees, from careful hands, from wounds that heal with scent. And yeah, the goats really are jerks. One of them tried to eat your walking stick. Back in the perfuming tent, the rhythm of the city returns. You sit cross-legged on a woven mat. Try to ignore how sore your thighs are from that uphill, goat-infested hike. Your gift of resin sits neatly in your lap, wrapped like a treasure, which, to these people, it kind of is. Across from you, the master perfumer enters. She's older than you'd guessed, with a spine like a reed and hands that flutter over bowls and burners like a dancer warming up. Her robe is deep indigo, stained faintly at the cuffs with resins, oils, and who knows what else. You blink. Is that a gold tooth? Yep. She smiles, and it catches the light like a sunbeam. She doesn't greet you with words. Instead, she gestures for you to come closer. You scoot up beside a wide, shallow dish of blackened clay. It's filled with hot coals, the kind that glow red at the center and make you want to wave your fingers over them just to see how close you can get without screaming. She adds a few chunks of frankincense, and the air changes instantly. Smoke curls upward, slow and deliberate, like it knows it's being watched. This is where things get fun. And by fun, we mean ancient chemistry with no gloves or goggles. Today's experiment, distilling perfume not by boiling or mixing, but by capturing smoke itself. The master perfumer takes a conical pottery lid, almost like an upside-down funnel, and places it over the burner. A thin copper pipe juts out from one side. As the smoke builds inside the dome, it gets funneled through the pipe, which is wrapped in wet cloth. Condensation forms along the inside. The resulting liquid, collected drop by drop into a bowl at the end, is thick and cloudy, like the tears of a very emotional tree. You are watching the scent cry. The perfumer says at last. You suppress a cough. The smoke's gotten strong, and your nose is staging a protest. But there's something hypnotic about the process. Every step is slow, intentional. Not an ounce of fragrance is wasted. This is called fumigation extraction, and it's not something you'll find at your average mall perfume counter. Historians debate whether the Ethiopians pioneered this technique independently or absorbed it from trade with Arabia or Egypt. Either way, their methods are distinct. Unlike the Egyptians, who preferred distillation with water or oil, the Ethiopians harnessed smoke directly, as both ritual and resource. And then there's the odd bit. In some royal households, perfumers believed the smoke itself could carry a message to the gods. Not metaphorically, literally. You burn a particular mix of frankincense, wild fig sap, and crushed pearl. That meant you needed healing. Another combo. Fertility. Or forgiveness. Or victory in war. You weren't just wearing perfume. You were speaking through it. At one point, the perfumer hands you a long, narrow cloth soaked in an earlier batch of smoke extract. You're told to rub it between your palms, then press it behind your ears. You do, and instantly smell like you've wandered into a luxurious spice market run by a mystical grandmother. There's warmth, musk, a sweet note that might be fig, or burnt apricot. It's hard to tell. You're too busy trying not to pass out from how good it smells. You glance around. No labels. No fancy glass bottles. Everything is kept in ceramic jars or gourd containers. The packaging is earthy, cracked, and stained, but the contents? Regal. It's hard not to compare this to modern perfume culture. Today, we spray a pre-packaged bottle and hope it lasts till lunch. Here, it's a full-body ritual. The Ethiopians don't just apply fragrance. They become it. Smoke seeps into hair, skin, fabric. A good perfuming session can last days, and in some cases, even influence how someone is buried. Yep, Some tombs were lined with burnt resin and herbal ashes, so even the dead could smell fresh. The perfumer begins mixing something new now, an experimental blend meant for tonight's royal feast. She grabs a bit of cinnamon bark, a scoop of honey crystals, and something powdery green that smells like dried citrus zest. "This one," she says, "is for seduction." You raise an eyebrow. She grins. "Not for you. For the goat seller's daughter." She places the blend on the coals. Instantly, the smoke changes. It's soft now, like velvet. There's a tinge of fruitiness, and a slow warmth that creeps into your spine like a whispered promise. You imagine someone walking past you wearing this, and you just following them for the next 12 years. Perfume here isn't about covering up. It's about revealing, about identity, and intent. You catch your reflection in a brass bowl and realize you're covered in a thin sheen of sweat and scent. You don't smell like you anymore. You smell ancient, mysterious, a little intimidating. As the perfumer wraps up her session, she offers you a pouch of blended resin and a small clay burner. "A gift," she says, "in case you want to speak with the gods later." You thank her, though honestly, your next conversation might just be with your pillow. The sun outside is beginning to tilt westward, and the town is coming alive again. Drums echo in the distance. Someone's cooking something spiced and greasy. Finally, your stomach growls in protest. But for now, you linger in the smoke, watching the last of the frankincense curl into the rafters like a secret. You still have questions. Like, how do they learn to do all this without written recipes? And how the heck do they tell the difference between 8 kinds of tree sap using only their nose? But those answers will come. For now, you're content to sit in the haze, fingers sticky with resin, smelling like an old temple and a seductive fig. The sun dips lower as you step outside, the smoky scent of ancient perfume clinging to your clothes like a memory. You blink in the golden light, still half dazed by everything you've just witnessed. Your hands smell like roasted tree sap and herbal secrets. If your modern friend could see you now, they'd probably assume you'd taken a really weird spa day. But there's no time to linger. The perfumer's apprentice waves you on, guiding you toward a cluster of huts just beyond the main market square. These aren't for tourists. If ancient Ethiopians even had those. This is where the real mixing happens. Not just of scents, but of people, ideas, and traditions. Because here's the thing no one tells you about ancient perfumes. They were never just local. A teenage boy greets you, shirtless and dust-covered, grinding something in a stone mortar that smells faintly of citrus and garlic. He nods at you, then adds something into the bowl that sizzles. What is that? Charcoal. You don't ask. You just breathe it in and try to act like you totally know what's going on. As you explore, it becomes clear this isn't just Ethiopian knowledge. You spot clay jars with Sabaean markings, South Arabian script, and a few fragments of Greek amphorae, reused to store spices. A Roman coin sits on a nearby windowsill, its emperor's face long, worn smooth. This isn't coincidence. It's evidence of trade, and a lot of it. Frankincense didn't stay in Ethiopia. It traveled, by camel, boat, and blistered foot. The kingdom of Aksum, ancient Ethiopia's power center, was a major hub in the incense trade, connecting sub-Saharan Africa with Arabia, India, and even the Mediterranean. Aksumite merchants weren't just hauling bags of resin. They were cultural messengers. Historians still argue whether Ethiopia invented certain perfume processes or borrowed and refined them. But one thing's clear. They took everything they learned, Sabaean rituals, Egyptian burial scents, even Hellenistic aromatherapy, and made it distinctly their own. You sit near a group of women working with bundles of dried herbs and petals. One of them hands you a dried pod the size of a walnut. You crack it open, carefully, and inside is a cluster of jet black seeds that smell like menthol and mystery. "Zarita," she says, "a local plant, used in love potions and insect repellents. Sometimes both. They crush flowers with chunks of pink salt. They steep wild orchids in goat's milk and bury the jars underground for a week. They ferment rose petals in honey and cinnamon bark, waiting months for the scent to bloom. One of them is boiling a bright yellow root in sugarcane wine. The whole hut smells like a spicy candy factory run by a wizard. You learn fast. Frankincense is just the anchor. The real perfume game, it's a remix. Every trader who passed through brought new materials. cardamom from India, saffron from Persia, myrrh from Arabia. Some even mention sandalwood arriving in Aksumite ports. Its scent so powerful that priests demanded it be kept wrapped until ritual use. And sometimes, things got weirder. One traveler's account mentions civet being used in royal perfumes. Civet is a musky substance extracted from a small, cat-like creature. Yes, cat perfume. You try not to gag. But apparently, it was prized for making scents last longer, and still is in some luxury fragrances today. Gross, but historically accurate. The truly wild part? Ancient Ethiopian perfumers weren't just copying foreign recipes. They were experimenting like mad scientists. They combined smoked resins with fermented fruits, mixed floral oils with crushed bone ash for longevity, they claimed. One legend even tells of a monk who created a perfume that could steal your will if smelled too deeply. Honestly, you buy that on Etsy. You watch a child, barely 10, light a burner and expertly layer crushed hibiscus over hot embers. A sweet steam rises, like melted strawberry jam and sunshine. She fans it into her mother's shawl, sealing the scent. That cloth will carry its perfume for days. Everything here is multisensory. Scents aren't stored. They're trapped in fabric, hair, skin. You catch glimpses of people perfuming their pillows with smoke, their tools, even the insides of their sandals. You chuckle. Ancient foot spray. Some things really don't change. Back in your world, scent is luxury. Here, it's life. A message. A word. A memory. You think back to earlier, when the perfumer said you were watching the scent cry. Now you understand. This isn't chemistry. It's emotion, bottled in ways science barely explains. And that's the magic of it. The fusion of old and new, local and foreign, ritual and daily life. By now your head is spinning, not just from the smoke, but from the sheer volume of knowledge around you. No instruction manuals, no textbooks, just centuries of passed down craft, humming in every hand movement, every gesture. A knowledge so instinctual, it feels like music. And just when you think you've seen it all, an older man walks past wearing what smells like roasted figs, dry tobacco, and roasted nuts. You pause. What's that? You ask. He laughs. Oh, turns out, he's a sailor. Spent years in the Red Sea trade routes. His perfume, a mix of every scent he missed while away. It's his memory, bottled and burned. You lean back against the wall, the afternoon breeze drifting in, thick with the layered perfumes of the town. You've smelled centuries of history today. You've seen fire used as a tool for transformation. You've learned that even smoke can speak volumes, if you know how to listen. And in Ethiopia, they've been listening for a very, very long time. You follow the gentle spiral of smoke curling upward as it carries stories from centuries past, floating lazily above the open fires where frankincense resin slowly smolders. The scent is both sharp and sweet, like a dusty citrus orchard kissed by resinous pine. You almost expect ancient voices to drift on the breeze, whispering secrets of ritual and daily life. As you lean closer, the perfumer points to a series of clay bowls filled with different grades of frankincense, each one distinct, harvested from trees grown in various regions of the Ethiopian highlands. You learn that not all frankincense is created equal. The best grades come from the Boswellia sacred tree, prized for its rich, honeyed aroma that slowly transforms when burned. Lesser grades have a sharper, more bitter smell, like pine needles crushed underfoot after a rain. Frankincense harvesting is an art in itself. You watch the skilled gatherers, often called resin farmers, making precise incisions in the tree bark with curved knives. The tree bleeds, a milky sap that hardens into translucent amber tears. You can't help but feel a bit like a medical student observing ancient surgery, except the patient is a tree that willingly offers its fragrant secret. Historians still argue whether these harvesting techniques developed independently in Ethiopia or if knowledge traveled from the Arabian Peninsula across the Red Sea. But either way, the methods have changed little for millennia. While you imagine yourself carefully collecting these fragrant tears, the perfumer shares a quirky tidbit. Apparently, some collectors believe that singing to the trees encouraged them to produce more resin, whether it was the vibrations or just a good excuse to pass the long hours. The tradition lingers in folk stories, adding a melodic charm to the serious craft. You notice that the resin varies not only in aroma, but also in color and texture. Some pieces look like polished amber gems, while others resemble dull, cloudy pebbles. The finest tears glow warmly when held to the light, almost as if carrying their own inner fire. This is no accident. The way resin hardens depends on the altitude, climate, and even the age of the tree. The scent's complexity reflects Ethiopia's unique geography and culture, a blend of African earthiness with hints of Arabian and Mediterranean influences. The perfumer explains how the resin was used not only in personal grooming, but also in religious ceremonies, as a purifier and connector to the divine. Imagine ancient priests wafting frankincense smoke through temples, their chants rising in harmony with the incense, creating a sensory tapestry that wrapped the faithful in a comforting yet mysterious embrace. You think about how the subtle shifts in scent could mark different occasions: a joyous wedding, a somber funeral, or a quiet evening spent in prayer. Each puff of smoke was like a gentle punctuation in the story of life, written in fragrant curls. As the afternoon sun wanes, you watch the perfumer carefully grind frankincense tears with crushed wildflowers and spices, myrrh, cinnamon, and even a hint of local honey, turning smoke into a living art form. You begin to see perfume not just as a scent, but as a vessel of memory, culture, and connection, gently passed from hand to hand, tree to temple, and person to person. The air around you grows thick with calm, the mixture of scents working its subtle magic. You inhale deeply, feeling the history seep into your bones like a warm, invisible cloak. It's no wonder ancient Ethiopians revered frankincense as sacred. Their perfume was more than fragrance. It was a bridge across time. You follow the warm tendrils of frankincense, smoke as it drifts through the open courtyards and stone chambers of ancient Ethiopian homes. The scent wraps around you like a soft blanket, comforting and familiar, yet carrying whispers of distant lands and forgotten rituals. Here, in these humble spaces, perfume was more than a luxury. It was woven into daily life in ways that might surprise you. The perfumer gestures to a worn wooden table strewn with simple tools: small mortars and pestles, tiny ceramic pots, and strips of finely woven cloth. These were the implements of the ancient craft, used to extract and shape the fragrant essence into wearable forms. You imagine hands working slowly, rhythmically, grinding and mixing, creating delicate pastes and fragrant oils designed to soothe, enchant, and protect. One of the more curious details you discover is that ancient Ethiopians often combined frankincense smoke with aromatic steam baths, a practice that sounds downright luxurious after a long, dusty day. The perfumer explains that the smoke was funneled into steam chambers, where it mingled with heated water to create a vapor so rich and soothing that it cleansed not just the body, but also the spirit. Historians still argue whether this technique originated locally or was inspired by similar traditions from Egypt and the Arabian Peninsula, but the results were undeniably decadent. As you settle into the story, the perfumer shares an amusing fact. Some folks believe that the scent of frankincense could ward off evil spirits, or at least bad moods. Apparently, if you had a grumpy neighbor or a cranky sibling, a good waft of frankincense smoke was the ancient equivalent of a calming playlist. Imagine that. Perfume as an early mood booster. Not bad for something that comes from tree sap and fire. The process of preparing the incense was meticulous. You learn how the resin had to be carefully dried and broken into manageable chunks before being gently heated over smoldering embers. Too much heat and the scent became bitter. Too little, and it failed to release its full magic. The perfumer smiles as they describe the delicate balance, a bit like brewing the perfect cup of tea, but with smoke instead of leaves. You also hear about the role of women in this aromatic world. While men might gather resin from the trees or handle large-scale production, women often took charge of the final perfume blends used at home or in social ceremonies. They added secret ingredients: wildflowers, herbs, and spices gathered from the lush Ethiopian highlands, each recipe guarded like a family treasure. The perfumer notes that historians still debate how widely these recipes varied across regions. But one thing is certain: perfume making was as much an art as a tradition. The gentle hum of conversation fades as you picture yourself in a warm courtyard, the air thick with fragrant steam. You see women chatting softly as they prepare their fragrant baths, sharing stories and laughter amid the curling smoke. It's easy to imagine how these sensory rituals created bonds and memories that lasted beyond a single generation. By the end of the day, the perfumer shows you small strips of cloth infused with the smoky essence, meant to be tucked into clothes or worn around the neck. These humble sachets carry the scent of frankincense throughout the day, a quiet reminder of home, hearth, and the ancient trees that shared their gifts. The subtle power of scent lingers in your mind, gently drawing you deeper into this ancient world, one smoky breath at a time. You feel the gentle weight of time settling around you as the story drifts further into the world of ancient Ethiopian perfumers and their delicate dance with frankincense smoke. The sun has dipped lower, casting long shadows that mingle with the swirling incense in the cool evening air. Now, you're drawn into the quieter, more mysterious side of perfume making, the sacred rituals and spiritual meanings wrapped in each fragrant wisp. It's a world where scent becomes prayer, protection, and a subtle bridge to the divine, filling spaces both physical and imagined. In ancient Ethiopia, frankincense wasn't merely a pleasant aroma. It was considered a sacred link between the earthly and the divine. You can almost hear the faint murmur of chants as priests and priestesses gather around stone altars, carefully placing chunks of resin on smoldering coals. The rising smoke curls upward in graceful spirals, carrying prayers and intentions toward the heavens. Historians still debate how much of these ceremonies influenced neighboring cultures, or if the Ethiopian practices themselves were shaped by faraway rituals from the Arabian Peninsula or Egypt. Either way, the fragrant smoke became a kind of ancient prayer in motion, a silent language of devotion and hope. Imagine standing quietly in a temple, the soft hiss of burning resin filling your senses, and feeling as if the very air is charged with something unseen but profoundly comforting. There's a warmth here, both from the embers and the shared human desire to connect with something greater than oneself. The sacred smoke swirls around stone pillars and carvings, wrapping the room in a gentle veil that seems to hush the noise of the outside world. It's no wonder this aromatic ritual endured for centuries, becoming a spiritual cornerstone for those who inhaled it. You learn that the scent of frankincense was believed to purify spaces and minds, sweeping away worries like a gentle breeze, clearing fallen leaves. Ancient Ethiopians understood that the fragrance could calm restless spirits and invite peace. It was a kind of aromatic meditation, grounding those who participated in easing their burdens, if only for a moment. You might picture a weary farmer returning from the fields or a nervous bride preparing for a wedding day, each drawn to the healing qualities of the smoke as a balm for body and soul. The perfumer shares an intriguing detail. Some communities would shape frankincense resin into small figures or beads, which were then worn as amulets or placed near infants to protect them from harm. You might find that a bit surprising. Perfume is a talisman, but in a world where scent was thought to hold magical properties, it makes a strange sort of sense. Imagine your great-great-grandparents' ancestor clutching a tiny, fragrant bead against their chest, believing it could ward off illness or bad fortune. Perhaps these scented charms were the ancient equivalent of your favorite lucky charm, a tiny comfort to carry through uncertain days. This belief in the protective power of scent also extended to daily life. You hear about special smoke guardians, who were responsible for carrying small censers filled with burning frankincense whenever people traveled. The idea was that the sweet smoke would keep travelers safe from unseen dangers on dusty roads, much like a modern driver relies on GPS. It's a quaint but charming notion, illustrating how deeply intertwined perfume was with notions of safety and well-being. Picture a caravan winding through rugged terrain, the faint tendrils of incense, smoke trailing behind like a fragrant shield against worry and harm. It's also fascinating to discover that frankincense wasn't only for high ceremonies or spiritual protection. People sprinkled the resin in their homes to freshen the air and create a cozy atmosphere for gatherings. You might imagine an Ethiopian family inviting neighbors over for a simple meal, the warm, resinous aroma enveloping everyone like a comforting hug. Historians still argue about how the daily use of frankincense in homes evolved alongside its sacred applications. But what's clear is that the scent brought people together, whether for worship, celebration, or quiet evenings. Trade played a huge role in spreading the allure of frankincense. The resin was so valuable, it was sometimes used as currency or diplomatic gifts, carefully packaged and wrapped in delicate cloth to preserve its scent. Imagine a dusty caravan arriving in a far-off city, its precious cargo sending tendrils of fragrance long before the traders themselves came into view. These caravans connected Ethiopia to distant lands along the ancient incense routes, where frankincense mingled with spices, textiles, and stories from around the world. The perfume's smoky scent became an ambassador for Ethiopian culture, a fragrant introduction to strangers and friends alike. You might be surprised to learn how meticulous the packaging was. The frankincense resin was often stored in small gourds or leather pouches, lined with aromatic herbs to keep the scent fresh. Some traders took such care in wrapping their goods that the unwrapping itself became a ceremony, almost as precious as the resin inside. It's a detail that reminds you how important scent was in ancient social and economic life. Almost like unboxing the perfect gift, but with smoke instead of ribbons. Beyond its practical and spiritual roles, frankincense held symbolic power. In royal courts, the scent was a mark of status and refinement, wafting through grand halls where kings and queens received guests. You can almost hear the soft rustling of silk robes and the quiet murmur of courtly conversations, punctuated by the occasional flicker of a censer. Historians still debate how perfume shaped social hierarchies in ancient Ethiopia, but the connection between scent and prestige was undeniable. Imagine being part of an elite gathering where every breath carried a trace of this precious resin, a fragrant reminder of wealth and tradition. As the evening deepens, you find yourself transported to a quiet village scene. Elders sitting near an open fire, slowly inhaling the rising smoke, sharing stories and memories. The scent connects them to ancestors and to one another, a fragrant thread weaving through generations. In this smoky, sacred atmosphere, you understand how perfume was not just smelled, but deeply felt, a silent language spoken in every curl of fragrant smoke. You also discover that different types of frankincense resin were prized for their unique scents. Some varieties were sweeter, others more resinous or woody. Perfume makers experimented with blending these to create subtle variations that marked occasions or moods. It's a bit like an ancient form of aromatherapy, where specific fragrances were chosen to uplift, soothe, or inspire. The idea that scent could influence emotions and well-being is surprisingly modern, though rooted in traditions thousands of years old. The perfumer ends your visit by lighting a small bundle of resin, its sweet smoke curling like a gentle invitation to reflect. You close your eyes, letting the scent wrap around you like a soft lullaby, a fragrant echo of a time when every breath carried a story, and every smoke plume was a bridge between worlds. The gentle hum of the fire, the distant chatter of village life, and the whisper of ancient trees create a symphony of senses, inviting you to relax deeper. And here, in this fragrant haze, you feel the past and present gently entwine, reminding you that some pleasures, like the quiet joy of a good scent, never truly fade. The smoke fades slowly, leaving you with the lingering warmth of connection, calm, and the timeless magic of frankincense. You step further into the warm, fragrant world of ancient Ethiopian perfumery, where the very air seems alive with the smoky, resinous scent of frankincense. Imagine yourself in a sunlit courtyard bordered by rough-hewn stone walls that have witnessed centuries of ritual. You see the familiar boswellia trees nearby, the source of this precious resin, standing tall and resilient in the dry, rocky terrain. Their bark, gnarled and scarred, tells silent stories of countless harvests, each tapping releasing precious tears of aromatic sap. These droplets, once hardened, are gathered carefully by hands that know the trees intimately, a knowledge passed down through generations. The journey from this resin to the delicate perfumes that cloaked ancient Ethiopians in scent is an intricate one, blending natural alchemy with spiritual reverence. It begins, of course, with the resin itself. The boswellia trees exude a sticky sap as a protective response to injury, which hardens into the fragrant chunks we call frankincense. But to the people of ancient Ethiopia, frankincense was much more than a mere ingredient. It was a sacred gift from the gods, a bridge between the earthly and the divine. The resin's smoky aroma was believed to carry prayers upward, to invite blessings, and to cleanse both body and spirit. To create perfume from frankincense smoke was a subtle art, demanding patience and care. The ancient perfumers would ignite carefully selected chunks of resin over smoldering embers, coaxing delicate tendrils of smoke to rise in slow, curling spirals. This smoke, rich with piney, citrusy, and slightly peppery notes, was the heart of the fragrance experience. But how to capture something as ephemeral as smoke? Here's where the ingenuity comes in. Absorbent materials, soft cloths, porous woods, or even naturally spongy plants were held above or around the smoke, soaking up its essence like a scented sponge. This smoke-infused material then formed the base of the perfume, which was blended with oils extracted from indigenous plants, flowers, and spices to create complex, multi-layered aromas. Historians still argue whether the exact plants and oils mixed with frankincense in ancient Ethiopian perfumes were solely native species, or if traders introduced exotic spices such as cinnamon, cardamom, or saffron. Some botanical studies hint that native herbs like myrrh, rue, or even rare flowers played a vital role, lending a bitter or floral counterpoint to the sweet, resinous smoke. Regardless, the final perfumes were far from simple. They were sophisticated blends designed to soothe, invigorate, and spiritually elevate the wearer. Imagine the perfume-making process unfolding in a shaded alcove or courtyard, where a skilled artisan moves with deliberate grace. The soft rustling of cloth and the gentle crackle of burning resin accompanying whispered prayers or chants. The mixing of smoke-infused cloth with fragrant oils is a tactile, almost meditative act. Fingers gently massaging and blending, coaxing harmony from disparate elements. These perfumes were not everyday commodities, but sacred creations, worn during special rituals, ceremonies, or important social occasions. To be enveloped in such a scent was to be wrapped in layers of meaning, protection, and reverence. A charming detail that sometimes slips under the radar is the use of frankincense perfume on animals and homes, not just people. Some ancient Ethiopian communities believe that applying the fragrant oils to livestock would ward off illnesses and malevolent spirits, a kind of aromatic blessing for prosperity and health. Similarly, perfumed smoke was wafted through homes and communal spaces to purify and protect. These practices reflect the deep integration of scent and spirituality in daily life, where the boundary between the sacred and the mundane was delightfully blurred. Now consider how delicate and fleeting these perfumes must have been. Unlike modern fragrances sealed in airtight bottles, these ancient scents were vulnerable to time, temperature, and air exposure. The smoky essences could fade quickly, and the natural oils might deteriorate under the intense Ethiopian sun. This impermanence meant perfume making was a thoughtful, seasonal act, something to be savored, shared sparingly, and respected. It was an intimate part of cultural identity, a personal and communal treasure. There's also ongoing scholarly debate about how much these ancient Ethiopian perfumes influenced neighboring traditions. Some researchers propose that incense and perfume rituals in Egypt and South Arabia share common origins or mutual influence, while others emphasize Ethiopia's unique innovation in capturing and preserving the elusive essence of smoke itself. Either way, these perfumes occupy a special place in the history of scent, representing a remarkable fusion of nature, culture, and devotion. You might picture yourself attending a ceremony in a sun-warmed temple, the air thick with the soft haze of frankincense, smoke, and delicate floral perfumes. The scents swirl gently, calming your nerves and slowing your breath, wrapping you in a cocoon of tranquility. This ancient fragrance, born from the smoke of sacred trees, carries you across time and space, connecting you intimately with a people who understood how scent could soothe the soul and bridge the gap between earth and sky. So next time you catch a whiff of a piney, citrusy aroma in the air or encounter the gentle burn of incense smoke, remember this ancient Ethiopian tradition, how they captured the spirit of smoke itself to create perfumes that were more than just scents but sensory stories, whispered prayers, and timeless gifts. You continue your quiet journey through the scented past, now stepping into the daily lives of ancient Ethiopians and discovering how frankincense perfumes wove into their routines and social customs. Picture the sun dipping low, casting long shadows on bustling village squares, where the fragrant tendrils of burning frankincense mingle with the dusty air. Here, perfume is more than a personal luxury. It's an integral part of social fabric, a subtle language spoken in scent. Daily application of perfume was a ritualistic moment, a gentle pause to prepare for the day's challenges or evening's gatherings. Imagine a woman carefully dabbing a bit of frankincense-infused oil behind her ears, along her wrists, or across her forehead. These touches were both practical and symbolic, believed to invite good fortune, health, and divine favor. Men, too, joined in, smoothing fragrant oils into their beards and hair, a practice that today might feel surprisingly relatable. After all, who doesn't appreciate a subtle cologne boost? One curious tradition that still puzzles historians involves the use of perfume in ancient Ethiopian marriage ceremonies. Brides were often adorned with layers of scented oils and powders, including frankincense, which was said to bind the couple's spirits together. Some anthropologists suggest that the lingering scent acted as a kind of olfactory signature, a way for partners to recognize each other, even at a distance or after long separations. This idea is charming and plausible, yet historians still argue whether this practice was widespread or confined to elite families. You might imagine that in the marketplace, perfume also functioned as a social marker. Scented individuals were often seen as genteel or wealthy, their perfumes signaling status much like fine fabrics or elaborate jewelry. But unlike these static symbols, perfume was living and shifting, sometimes fading by midday, sometimes renewed with a discreet reapplication. This ephemeral quality gave the wearer a quiet power, the ability to shape their presence through scent, to command attention or offer comfort without a single word. Perfume's role extended beyond the personal and into communal spaces. Public baths, for example, were infused with frankincense smoke, transforming a routine cleanse into a spiritual experience. Bathers found themselves enveloped in the resin's calming aroma, which soothed muscles and mind alike. Historians still debate whether these baths served primarily hygienic, therapeutic, or religious purposes, or perhaps all three at once. Regardless, the inclusion of frankincense hints at a sophisticated understanding of scent's power to influence mood and wellness. Interestingly, frankincense perfume also played a part in the culinary world. While the resin itself wasn't typically ingested, its aromatic smoke was sometimes used to lightly scent foods and drinks during special feasts. Imagine a steaming bowl of spiced porridge or a sweet honey cake briefly exposed to frankincense smoke, lending a whisper of exotic warmth and spiritual depth. This subtle flavoring was probably reserved for nobility or religious festivals, underscoring the resin's sacred status. You can't help but notice how intertwined frankincense was with the rhythms of life and death. During funerary rites, perfumed smoke filled the air, intended to guide spirits safely onward and comfort the grieving. This use of fragrance to honor ancestors and ease transitions speaks to a worldview that valued sensory connection to the divine. The delicate balance of smoke and scent offered both mourning and hope, an aromatic bridge between worlds. There's also a fascinating, if somewhat quirky, practice involving the use of frankincense perfume by Ethiopian hunters. Some tribes believe that anointing themselves with the resin scent would calm wild animals or even disguise human odor, making it easier to approach game. Whether or not this worked, it's a vivid reminder of how scent was perceived as a tool not only for human interaction, but for blending into the natural world. This idea, while charming, is still debated among historians and ethnographers, who wonder how much practical effect perfume had beyond the symbolic. As you imagine these rich layers of daily life, you realize that perfume was never just about smelling nice. It was an expression of identity, belief, and connection to community, nature, and spirit. The carefully crafted scents were sensory stories, weaving together the past and present, the mundane and mystical. Today, when you catch a whiff of incense in a crowded street or notice a faint floral fragrance on a breeze, you're touching a thread of this ancient tradition. The ritual, the social dance, the subtle power of scent endures, an invisible legacy carried on in the quiet moments we take to prepare ourselves for the world, connect with others, or simply breathe deeply and relax. You settle deeper into this gentle exploration, now turning to the fascinating world of frankincense trade routes and the cultural exchanges that shaped ancient Ethiopian perfume making. Imagine dusty caravans winding through harsh deserts and rugged mountains, their camels laden with precious resin, moving slowly but surely toward distant markets. This slow journey of frankincense from Ethiopian groves to faraway lands is a story of connection, commerce, and cross-cultural curiosity. Ancient Ethiopians were not isolated. They were part of a vast web of trade stretching across Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, and even as far as the Mediterranean and India. Frankincense, harvested from the fragrant boswellia trees native to the region, was one of the prized commodities. As it traveled, it gained new meanings and uses, influencing and being influenced by the cultures it touched. The resin's sweet, spicy aroma became synonymous with divinity, luxury, and healing in many societies. You might picture the bustling port of Aksum, where frankincense caravans met seafaring merchants. Here, traders from Arabia, Rome, and beyond bargained, exchanging goods and stories. Ethiopian perfume makers absorbed influences from these visitors, integrating new ingredients, techniques, and ideas into their own traditions. This cultural mingling was as intoxicating as the scents themselves, a rich blend of innovation and reverence. One quirky detail historians love is the story of how frankincense was sometimes used as a form of currency, or at least as a highly valued trade good, almost like an ancient cryptocurrency of scent. Imagine a merchant calculating the value of a resin shipment, not just by weight, but by its purity, aroma, and the region it came from. Some scholars argue that this complex valuation system contributed to the rise of powerful trading kingdoms in the Horn of Africa, though others suggest it was more a symbol of status than practical money. The movement of frankincense also sparked debates among scholars regarding the origins of certain perfume recipes. Did ancient Ethiopians develop all their aromatic blends independently, or were some creations inspired by Arabian or Indian traditions? Historians still argue about the extent of influence, but it's clear that perfume was a shared language of culture and commerce. As you imagine the caravan's slow trek across the landscape, you can almost feel the rough bark of the boswellia trees beneath your fingers, the warm sun on your skin, and the faint hint of resin carried on the wind. Harvesting frankincense was no simple task. It required skill, patience, and respect for nature. Cut too deeply, and the tree could suffer. Tapped just right, it would continue to produce the precious resin year after year. There's a charming, lesser-known tale about how Ethiopian harvesters would sing or chant softly to the boswellia trees as they worked, believing their voices encouraged the trees to release more resin. While this practice is mostly anecdotal, it highlights the spiritual relationship between people and their environment, a theme woven through the perfume's history. On the other side of the trade network, you find fascinating evidence of how frankincense was adapted into different perfumes, often combined with local spices, flowers, and oils to suit regional tastes. For example, in ancient Rome, frankincense was mixed with myrrh and rose to create complex fragrances favored by the elite. In India, it was blended with sandalwood and jasmine, while Arabian perfumers sometimes added oud and musk. This exchange of ideas enriched perfume traditions worldwide, creating a fragrant tapestry of human creativity. Another intriguing fact is that frankincense was not always burned or worn as perfume. In some cultures, it was ground into powder and incorporated into medicinal ointments or used as a base for cosmetics. Ethiopian healers might mix frankincense with beeswax and herbs to create salves for skin ailments or respiratory troubles. These practices show how perfume, medicine, and ritual often overlapped in ancient societies. The historical record also reveals occasional tensions around frankincense trade. Some kingdoms guarded their sources jealously, while others tried to control the routes by force or diplomacy. The wealth generated by frankincense contributed to political power, but also sparked conflicts. Historians still debate how much of this competition shaped the political landscape of the region versus how much was mythologized later. As you imagine the journey of frankincense, from tree to trader to perfume maker to wearer, you see it as more than a mere commodity. It was a living thread connecting people across continents and centuries, a fragrant symbol of exchange, identity, and aspiration. And while today you might find frankincense in a tiny bottle at a local market or tucked away in a spa's aroma diffuser, it carries with it echoes of those ancient pathways and rituals. The next time you catch that resinous, citrusy scent, you're inhaling a story that spans deserts and oceans, kingdoms and villages, rituals and romances. So, as you drift deeper into the quiet world of scent and history, remember that every whiff of frankincense perfume is a whisper of human connection, a slow, scented conversation carried on the breeze of time. You find yourself drawn now into the intimate world of ancient Ethiopian perfume-making workshops, places where frankincense smoke wasn't just a scent but a craft, an art, and a slow ritual. Picture a cool, dim room warmed by the gentle glow of embers and the steady curl of aromatic smoke rising from a small brazier. The air feels thick with mystery, calm, and a hint of something sacred. This is where the magic happened, where nature's gift was transformed into perfume that could soothe, inspire, and connect. Perfume making in ancient Ethiopia was a process that demanded patience and respect. Unlike today's quick sprays and synthetic blends, these artisans worked carefully, often over hours or even days, coaxing the delicate fragrances out of raw materials. The frankincense resin was central, but it was never used alone. Instead, it was combined with a range of herbs, flowers, and oils, each adding a new note to the final perfume's complexity. You can almost hear the soft crackle of resin as it melts and burns, releasing that signature warm, citrusy aroma. The artisans had to master the art of heat control, not too hot to scorch the precious resin, but enough to allow its oils to evaporate slowly and mingle with other scents. It's a delicate balance, like playing a musical instrument, where a single wrong move could spoil the entire blend. One fascinating tidbit that often surprises people is that some ancient Ethiopian perfume recipes included surprisingly earthy ingredients. For example, they sometimes added small amounts of myrrh, which shares a similar but deeper resinous scent. There's also evidence they used wildflowers and even tree bark, chosen for their subtle fragrances and believed medicinal properties. This complexity shows that perfume was not just about smell, but about wellness and ritual. Historians still argue whether Ethiopian perfume making was influenced more by African traditions or by interactions with Arabian and Mediterranean cultures. Some scholars emphasize local innovation, pointing to unique ingredients and techniques found only in the region. Others highlight similarities with neighboring regions, suggesting a rich cross-cultural exchange. Either way, the workshops were places of both tradition and creativity. You might imagine a master perfumer, a figure both practical and mystical, guiding apprentices through the slow, attentive work. These workshops were likely family-run, with skills passed down through generations. Apprentices learned to recognize the subtle differences in resin quality, the ideal temperature for burning, and the right proportions of each additive. It was as much an art as a science, with a sprinkling of secret knowledge. An interesting anecdote from some oral traditions suggests that perfume makers often sang or whispered prayers while working, inviting blessings on their craft and on those who would wear their creations. These rituals, though hard to verify historically, hint at perfume's spiritual role in society. The very act of perfume making was an offering to the gods, to guests, or to oneself. The sensory experience of these workshops was undoubtedly rich and immersive. Imagine running your fingers over rough resin chunks, inhaling layers of scent that shift as smoke curls and cools. The warmth of the fire on your skin, the quiet murmurs of conversation or chant, the gleam of small oil jars lined up like treasures, all combining to create a soothing, almost hypnotic atmosphere. Perfume was often stored in small containers made from clay, glass, or even carved wood. These vessels were treasured objects, sometimes decorated with symbolic patterns or inscriptions. The care given to storing perfume reflects how precious these scents were, not just for personal use, but also as gifts, status symbols, or offerings in ceremonies. Here's a quirky detail. Some ancient Ethiopian perfumes were thought to have a memory, a quality that allowed them to evolve over time, releasing new notes days after application. This idea connects to a broader belief in many ancient cultures that scents could carry messages, emotions, or even spiritual essence. Wearing perfume wasn't just about smelling nice. It was about projecting an aura or identity. Historians still debate how widespread perfume use was across different social classes in ancient Ethiopia. While royal courts and elites undoubtedly had access to fine perfumes, some evidence suggests that simpler versions of frankincense-based scents were common among ordinary people. Perhaps a less refined but still fragrant resin smoke was part of daily life, offering comfort or marking special occasions. The process you're imagining, slow and deliberate, contrasts with the hurried pace of modern life. Here, making perfume was a pause, a moment to connect with nature, tradition, and oneself. The smoky air, the careful blending of scents, and the gentle patience required were as much a form of meditation as a craft. As the perfume dried on the skin or in the air, it lingered, an invisible, fragrant companion that could soothe nerves, mask fatigue, or evoke memories. Today, we might use essential oils or commercial perfumes to achieve similar effects, but the ancient Ethiopian process had a unique intimacy and grounding. Perhaps the most charming detail is how perfume was sometimes used in social rituals, welcoming guests, celebrating marriages, or marking spiritual moments. The scent created a shared space, a gentle invisible thread weaving people together in calm and comfort. So, as you breathe in this imagined smoky room, warmed by resin and steeped in tradition, you can appreciate the slow art of perfume making. It's a reminder that sometimes the most subtle pleasures come from patience, attentiveness, and a little bit of mystery. You step now into the bustling market towns of ancient Ethiopia, where the finished frankincense perfumes make their way from the quiet workshops into the hands of eager buyers. Imagine winding alleys filled with colorful stalls, the air rich with mingling scents of spices, fresh bread, and, of course, the unmistakable, soothing aroma of frankincense smoke. Here, perfume was more than a personal luxury. It was a currency of social connection, a symbol of identity, and a gentle thread woven into the fabric of daily life. The marketplace was the heartbeat of commerce and conversation, where merchants from various regions gathered to trade goods, stories, and secrets. Perfume sellers, or perfume men, were a familiar sight, carrying small containers, sometimes crafted from carved wood or delicate glass, filled with those fragrant oils and smoky resins you just imagined in the workshops. These sellers weren't just hawking scents. They were curators of culture, passing down tales and rituals associated with each perfume blend. One surprising detail you might not expect is how perfume functioned almost like a social language in these markets. Offering a fragrant smoke or a dab of perfume could signal respect, hospitality, or even romantic interest. There's an old story told among some communities that a man once won his bride by gifting her a rare frankincense perfume, one that captured the essence of the distant mountains where the resin was harvested. Whether entirely true or not, it highlights perfume's role beyond simple fragrance. It was a messenger of emotion and intention. You might picture the negotiation scenes, buyers and sellers exchanging not just coins but stories about the origin of the resin, the secret family recipes, or the subtle differences between batches. These conversations were often slow and deliberate, matching the gentle rhythm of the marketplace itself, where haste was discouraged and connection was prized. Historians still debate the extent to which perfume was accessible to different social classes in these marketplaces. While luxury perfumes were definitely prized by the wealthy, evidence suggests that simpler, locally made blends were popular among common folk as well. Some even argue that perfume was part of everyday hygiene practices, used to freshen the body or clothes in a time before modern soap and deodorant. The marketplace also reveals the influence of trade routes that connected Ethiopia to the wider world. Frankincense, along with other exotic goods like spices, gold, and textiles, moved along caravan paths stretching across Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, and beyond. This trade helped shape perfume traditions, introducing new ingredients and techniques that enriched the ancient Ethiopian craft. You can almost hear the distant sounds of camels and merchants, weaving a tapestry of cultural exchange. A quirky fact to imagine: some vendors would burn small amounts of frankincense resin right there in the market stalls, inviting customers to inhale the smoke before buying. This practice was both practical and sensory, helping buyers appreciate the quality and character of the resin while creating an inviting, relaxed atmosphere. It's a bit like the modern perfume counter's spritz test, but with more smoke and less spray. The sensory overload of the market, colors, sounds, smells, would have made perfume stand out as a calming and precious element. While the noise and bustle surrounded you, the gentle scent of frankincense offered a moment of peace, a subtle reminder of nature's quiet presence amid human activity. Perfume's role extended beyond personal use and social rituals into religious ceremonies held in or near these market towns. Priests and worshippers alike used frankincense smoke to purify spaces, honor deities, and connect with the divine. This sacred dimension added another layer to perfume's cultural importance, linking the everyday with the spiritual. Historians still argue about how much the perfume trade contributed to ancient Ethiopia's economy compared to other goods. Some suggest it was a minor side product, while others point to texts and archaeological finds indicating that frankincense and its derivatives were a major export, highly valued far beyond Ethiopia's borders. You can imagine a perfume seller's daily routine: waking early to prepare small quantities, carefully packaging each fragrant blend, then setting out to the market. The slow morning light catches the dew on herbs and flowers, while the resin's smoky scent lingers in the cool air. It's a quiet, steady rhythm, rooted in tradition yet connected to the wider world. A fun aside is that some sellers were known for their storytelling skills, spinning elaborate tales about the origins of their perfumes, stories of mountain spirits, legendary perfumers, or enchanted forests. These narratives made buying perfume an experience, not just a transaction, blending fact and folklore in a way that soothed as much as it intrigued. You might find it comforting to picture yourself sitting quietly by such a stall, inhaling the soft, woody smoke and letting your thoughts drift with the gentle hum of the market around you. It's a scene that invites relaxation, curiosity, and a slow appreciation for the simple pleasures of scent and story. Perfume's journey from resin to marketplace underscores how ancient Ethiopians valued patience, skill, and connection. Each bottle held more than fragrance. It held memory, identity, and a touch of the sacred. As you imagine this world, remember how even in the busiest places, moments of calm and ritual persist, carried on the quiet smoke of frankincense. You find yourself now in the more private, intimate spaces of ancient Ethiopian homes, where the perfume made from frankincense smoke truly takes on its role in daily life. Imagine the soft glow of oil lamps casting flickering shadows on mud walls, and the faint, lingering scent of that warm, resinous smoke wrapping around you like a gentle blanket. Here, perfume is not just something to buy or trade. It's part of the ritual of self-care, hospitality, and even emotional expression. Picture yourself as a guest arriving in a traditional home. One of the first courtesies you experience is the waft of frankincense smoke from a small brazier carefully tended by the host. It's a fragrant welcome, an olfactory handshake that says, "You are honored here." The subtle, calming aroma settles around the room, softening the air and inviting relaxation. This practice, as historians note, was common across many East African cultures, though the exact blends and rituals varied widely. The making of perfume at home was a delicate, often meditative process. You might watch a family member gather small chunks of resin, carefully placing them on heated stones or charcoal to coax out the smoke. Sometimes, fresh herbs or flowers would be added to the mix, infusing the air with complementary scents. This blending of natural elements was both an art and a tradition, passed down through generations. A quirky detail worth imagining is how some households used the smoke as a natural mosquito repellent, turning a spiritual or aromatic practice into a practical solution for comfort. While you might be tempted to call it ancient bug spray, the truth feels more poetic: smoke that soothes, protects, and perfumes all at once. Perfume also played a role in personal grooming and beauty rituals. Women often applied scented oils to their skin or hair, mixing frankincense with other local ingredients like myrrh or fragrant flowers. This wasn't about showing off or extravagance. It was about feeling connected to nature and oneself. You can almost hear the gentle laughter and soft chatter of family members as they prepared for the day or evening, their skin glowing faintly with the subtle shimmer of scented oil. There's an ongoing scholarly debate about how much perfume use varied between men and women in these homes. Some sources suggest a shared cultural practice, while others argue it was mostly women's domain, tied to notions of beauty and femininity. Whatever the case, the presence of frankincense smoke and perfume was a constant, quietly shaping the atmosphere. You might also consider how perfume was involved in moments of rest or meditation. Some families used the gentle smoke to mark transitions in the day, cleansing the home before sleep or welcoming the dawn with fragrant incense. The slow burn of frankincense resin was like a clock's soft tick, marking time with calm and intention. A fascinating fact is that the perfume's scent was believed to have mild healing properties, easing headaches or calming nerves. While modern science hasn't fully confirmed these claims, they speak to an intuitive understanding of aroma's power to affect mood and well-being, a concept echoed in aromatherapy today. Hospitality rituals often featured perfume in other unique ways. For example, guests might be invited to waft the smoke towards themselves or receive a dab of scented oil on their wrists. These acts were subtle, almost like a shared secret between host and guest, a way to build connection without words. It's a gentle form of communication, steeped in history. Perfume was also part of clothing care. Ancient textiles, often handmade and richly dyed, were scented lightly with frankincense oils to keep them fresh and ward off insects. Imagine the slow unfolding of a finely woven cloth, releasing hints of resinous smoke as it brushes your skin, a small luxury that added comfort and charm to everyday life. You might smile thinking about how this contrasts with modern synthetic perfumes. Here, the scents are natural, grounded in earth and plant, and never overpowering. It's perfume as an extension of the environment, not a mask to cover it. Another intriguing point is the role of perfume in religious or spiritual family rituals within the home. Small altars or sacred spaces often featured burning frankincense, linking domestic life to the divine. The smoke was a bridge, a way to invite blessings or cleanse the household's energy. This spiritual dimension deepened perfume's significance beyond mere scent. Historians still argue how much these home-based perfume practices influenced wider cultural identities and how far the traditions spread outside Ethiopia. Some evidence suggests that similar customs can be found throughout the Horn of Africa and even the Arabian Peninsula, hinting at a shared cultural heritage shaped by trade and migration. As you imagine yourself in this intimate space, the slow pace and quiet rituals invite a feeling of peace and belonging. The smoky perfume, the flickering lamplight, the soft murmur of voices, all combine into a sensory lullaby, perfect for calming the mind. Perhaps you'll remember this scene next time you light a candle or diffuse essential oils, realizing that these simple acts echo thousands of years of history and human connection. The ancient Ethiopian perfume makers and users knew something profound about scent. It's not just something you smell, but something you live within, a gentle companion on life's winding path. And as you sit quietly in this imagined home, let the warm, smoky fragrance of frankincense perfume carry you a little deeper into rest. The ancient artisans, the families, the guests. They're all here with you in the soft glow, sharing a timeless moment of calm. You settle into a quiet corner of history, where the craft of making perfume from frankincense smoke intersects with ancient Ethiopian trade routes. Imagine dusty caravans winding through rugged mountain passes and sun-baked deserts, laden not just with gold and spices, but with precious resin destined to perfume faraway lands. These routes aren't just highways. They are lifelines of culture, commerce, and slow, deliberate exchange. Trade was the heartbeat of the ancient world, and Ethiopia held a prized place on the map. The frankincense trees, mostly found in the arid lowlands, produced resins so coveted that merchants from Arabia, Egypt, and even the distant Roman Empire sought it eagerly. You can almost hear the murmurs of traders haggling over chunks of resin, measuring weight with careful hands, the air thick with the mingling scents of myrrh, cinnamon, and of course, frankincense smoke. But the journey of frankincense resin was no simple matter. Transporting it required skill and patience. Caravans had to navigate treacherous terrain, unpredictable weather, and sometimes hostile tribes. The resin itself, delicate and fragrant, had to be carefully packed to preserve its quality. Ancient Ethiopians mastered these challenges, not just as producers, but as savvy traders, negotiating deals that brought wealth and influence. The slow pace of the caravan meant long hours of rest, where the perfume was often used to create calming fires. Picture traders sitting by crackling braziers, watching wisps of smoke curl upwards, the scent helping to keep away insects and fatigue. This practical use of perfume during travel blends seamlessly with its ritual roll back home, creating a continuous thread from origin to destination. Interestingly, some historians debate whether Ethiopian traders were primarily exporters or also active importers of luxury goods. Did they only send out frankincense? Or did they bring back exotic spices, textiles, or even perfumes from other lands? The evidence is tantalizing but inconclusive, leaving room for your imagination to fill in the gaps. Trade wasn't only about goods, but also ideas. Alongside frankincense resin, stories, customs, and perfume-making techniques likely traveled, influencing cultures across the Red Sea and beyond. You might imagine a caravan trader sharing a secret recipe for a fragrant blend, or a noble in a foreign city curious about the calming effects of Ethiopian frankincense smoke. A quirky detail: some accounts suggest that certain traders carried small amounts of the perfume smoke inside ornate containers, like tiny treasure chests, to be gifted or sold in city markets. These were not just commodities, but symbols of status and refinement, coveted by elites eager to possess the rare scents of distant lands. As you picture this network of exchange, think of the diversity of people involved: the hardy desert nomads guiding camels, the meticulous merchants tallying goods, the local women who prepared the perfumes, and the distant buyers who awaited these exotic fragrances. Each played a role in the slow, steady flow of culture and commerce. The frankincense trade also shaped the political landscape. Control over resin-producing regions meant influence and wealth, and ancient Ethiopian rulers understood this well. They protected their groves and trade routes, sometimes forging alliances or engaging in disputes to maintain their hold. The perfume you now imagine was thus entangled with power and diplomacy, not just simple fragrance. You may find it soothing to consider how this slow commerce connected remote villages to imperial cities, uniting people through shared experience of scent and smoke. The frankincense perfume was a thread weaving together the ancient world, a delicate aroma binding distant lives in a gentle embrace. Interestingly, some trade routes overlapped with pilgrimage paths, adding spiritual significance to the journey of perfume. As traders carried resin and knowledge, so too did pilgrims carry prayers and hopes, often burning incense as a symbol of devotion. The overlap of commerce and spirituality enriched the cultural fabric of the region. There's an open scholarly debate about the precise impact of Ethiopian frankincense on Mediterranean and Middle Eastern perfume traditions. Some argue it was central and transformative. Others believe it was one of many influences. Either way, the evidence shows a deep interconnectedness, reminding you that perfume was never just a local luxury, but part of a broader human story. Imagine how this trade might feel in your own senses, how the dry air mingles with the sweet, smoky resin, how each breath carries echoes of distant lands and ancient hands. It's a story of patience, craftsmanship, and the slow weaving of cultures over centuries. As night deepens, let the thought of those caravans winding through the desert calm your mind. Each step, each waft of fragrant smoke, is a reminder of human connection, endurance, and the simple beauty of scent shared across time and place. Let yourself drift with the caravan, carried on the gentle breeze, scented with frankincense smoke, far from the rush of modern life. Here, the ancient world moves at its own pace, slow, deliberate, and softly fragrant. You're nearing the end of this fragrant journey through ancient Ethiopia, where the delicate art of making perfume from frankincense smoke has painted a rich tapestry of culture, trade, and ritual. Imagine now the final touches, how this craft evolved and influenced later generations, leaving a lingering scent in history's vast corridor. Picture a serene Ethiopian evening, the soft glow of lanterns flickering against stone walls. Perfume makers, perhaps descendants of the original artisans, gently tend their braziers. They watch the wisps of smoke curl upward, releasing the deep, resinous aroma of frankincense, mingled with whispers of herbs and rare spices. This smoke isn't just a fragrance. It's a bridge between the ancient and the present, a sensory link across time. As you settle in, it's worth reflecting on how this tradition encapsulated more than just scent. It represented identity, status, and connection to the divine. The smoke of frankincense was woven into daily life, celebrations, and ceremonies, an olfactory thread binding communities and individuals to their land and ancestors. It was a quiet reminder of the power and beauty found in nature's gifts and human creativity. Historians still debate the exact recipes and methods used, with some suggesting variations depending on region or purpose. Perhaps one village favored a sweeter blend, while another preferred a smoky, robust aroma. This fluidity keeps the story alive, allowing you to imagine the countless personal touches that made each perfume unique. An intriguing fringe detail is how some Ethiopian perfumers were believed to have secret knowledge, passed down through generations like whispered spells. These secrets might have involved the precise timing of resin collection, the ideal wood for burning, or the special herbs to add to the smoke. Such mystique adds a gentle allure, hinting at ancient wisdom quietly guarded through the centuries. Trade routes that once carried frankincense resin gradually transformed, but the cultural imprint remained. As empires rose and fell, the perfume tradition endured, sometimes hidden, sometimes flourishing in new forms. Even today, the scent of frankincense evokes a sense of calm, reverence, and history, reminding you that this ancient craft is not lost but lives on in subtle ways. There's a gentle humor in realizing how such a slow, careful process once helped people relax and find peace, just as it might help you drift off tonight. It's almost like ancient Ethiopians were early advocates of aromatherapy, long before the term existed. Their smoky perfumes soothe not only the body but the soul, a kind of ancient slow medicine. In the quiet of your room, you can imagine the smoke curling softly upward, carrying stories of long ago, of desert winds and mountain mists. Maybe you even catch a hint of the frankincense scent in your mind, a subtle invitation to rest and dream. As you let these thoughts settle, the pace slows further. The world outside fades, replaced by the timeless dance of smoke and flame, ritual and nature, history and myth. The ancient Ethiopian perfumer's hands might be gone, but their legacy lingers, as gentle and persistent as the scent of frankincense itself. Now, as your eyelids grow heavy, remember this. Every breath you take carries echoes of the past, of lives lived with patience and care, of cultures intertwined by fragrant smoke. Let the calm of this knowledge cradle you, soft and slow, into peaceful sleep. You've traveled far tonight, through mountains and deserts, markets and temples, rituals and trade routes, all woven together by the unassuming magic of perfume smoke. The story doesn't end here. It lives quietly in the air around you, ready to return whenever you seek it. So rest now. Let the gentle scent of frankincense guide you into dreams, where ancient Ethiopia's smoky perfumes mingle with your own peaceful thoughts. And when you wake, carry a little of this calm with you, a soft reminder that history's slow beauty is always near.